Hey guys, what's going on? Welcome back to the channel. As some of you may have saw on the recent community post I made, I did get a new amp in a couple days ago. Driftwood Darkest Nightmare back there. Looking forward to checking that out here on the channel. But before we even get to that, I made a few IRs. And so when I first started this channel, that's how I was recording my sound, was using impulse responses. I would plug up whatever amp I was using. Well, actually I started with the Helix, but eventually, even when I moved over to amps, I had my torpedo captor up there, which I still have. I would just run out of the back of the amp into that, and then you'd hear the amps through IRs. Now that I have a baby here, who's currently asleep as we speak, there's gonna be probably some more of that on the channel going forward. Not all the time, obviously. I can definitely still play my amps and kind of crank them to some extent, and he doesn't care too much. So, but anyway. That said, I just found it super interesting to capture some IRs of my setup, because as some of you will probably realize, there was a period where my quality of my sound quality on this channel is shot way up, and I attribute that to a few things. The most important thing in my mind is finding the right combination of mics. I, to this day, am not a huge fan of the raw sound of an SM57 up against a V30. And I hear that on a lot of people's YouTube channels, and even some friends of mine who generally I think they make the amp sound pretty good. I just don't like that sound. That said, it's like, okay, so what did I find? I found the SE Electronics VR1 ribbon mic. Nowadays, I tend to prefer combining that sound with an SM57, and since then I feel like I've found my sound. It's like, okay, I listen back to my YouTube videos and I really prefer the sounds I'm getting over the sounds of some of my favorite YouTubers, to include people like John Brown, who I freaking really love. But anyway, that said, it's super cool to have captured some IRs of these things. And I'm going to kind of go through them with you today. But yeah, so that was a bit of my concern. I've definitely used this setup on some mixed tracks before, but just the fact that I have kind of a bigger, deeper sound that, doesn't have that SM57 on a V30 vibe to it, I was a little concerned that I might lose something when trying to mix my guitars using that. Totally possible. In my opinion, you can definitely mix around it and get some pretty cool sounding stuff, like I just did in that track. But anyway, let's go ahead and dive into what this pack offers. So I have all of the IRs in the pack loaded up here into my Axe-Fx 3. Excuse me. So I made them using my KSR PA50. Awesome piece of gear. You guys know I love this thing. Excuse me. What I think is pretty cool about it is I basically separate them into two broad categories. Like some you'll see flat, and some you'll see GTR for guitar. And that basically indicates which mode that the power amp was in when I made the IRs. So for instance, right here, I currently have a Soldano something or other amp loaded up here in the Axe-Fx. It has power amp modeling. So the idea is you would use the flat IRs here. Let me show you what that sounds like. Now that's of course a mix of the SM57 and one of the VR1 IRs, which in my opinion is the ideal way to use these. However, of course, you can use either of them separately. So let me go ahead and show what they can sound like by themselves. You'll hear a little bit more brightness on the SM57, and the VR1 is a ribbon mic, which of course does not have that same degree of brightness. And then I also have some where you'll see it says blend. Whenever you see blend, it indicates that it's a blend of the VR1 and the SM57. Now, in my case, I can just, load up both of these IRs and have an SM57 on one and a VR1 on another. But if you aren't able to load multiple IRs like that, you have the option to just use one of the blended ones. So let's hear what each of these IRs can sound like on their own. Not all of them, but I'll go through a few of each type. So I'm turning off the second one, and we just have one IR active here. yeah, really cool in my opinion, and to my ears, it really is pretty comparable to the sounds that my recorded sounds I get when using my my full rig, which is super convenient right now. Again, like I said, when I'm sometimes in situations where I just can't play my rig as loud as I would like to. And that said, there are a lot of people nowadays who use IRs primarily for their workflow. I put a poll up on the channel last week. Maybe it was earlier this week, I don't remember. I recently put up a poll up on the channel to see how many folks were using physical cabs, IRs, or both. That was super interesting to see. It's about 50-50 between people who are using full real cabs and using some combination of IRs and cabs. Okay, so yeah, those are the flat IRs. Now I also have, like I said, our guitar labeled IRs in here. The purpose of these is if you're, instead of using something that has power amp emulation, just turn off the Soldano in here and turn on my KSR series. So for something that doesn't have any power amp, if you don't have any power amp emulation in the signal, just, now you do. Let's see what that sounds like. I'm turning on my series down here. Okay, so now I have the same version of the IR, but well, the same IR, but with, you know, the blend version and the flat version side by side, so you can hear what the differences are. So the numbers at the end, between 1, 2, and 3, are different positions of each mic, so if you're aware. Let's hear the difference between the guitar version of this IR and the flat version of it. So as you can probably hear, the flat IR is going to be a little bit brighter than the, well, a good bit brighter than the guitar IRs. And that's the effect of the power amp. The power amp kind of warms up the sound just a bit. But that said, you can definitely use either one depending on the situation. So I'm using my series here. So logic would dictate that I would use the guitar labeled IRs because there's no power amp emulated here. But sometimes you just want that extra brightness, in which case you can just use the flat version, which is just like when you actually use the KSR power amp. Typically you'll use the guitar mode for the series, but sometimes you want a little bit of extra brightness, you flip it over to flat and that kind of works out for you. But yeah, if you guys want to pick up this IR pack, it'll be down in the description on my big cartel page. There are 20 IRs included. Yeah, I think that it's a pretty cool and good representation of the sound that I have going on here, and I hope you guys enjoy them. If you do pick them up, please either hit me up or drop some comments down there in the comment section. Let me know what you're thinking about it. And let me know if you're interested in hearing more. I have a whole other cab over here, and I can definitely do some more mics, more mic positions, and all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I'll leave you guys with the mix track from earlier, but this time it's just going to be the guitars on it. You guys take care, and look forward to my video on the Driftwood Darkest Nightmare, hopefully this weekend. Y'all take care.